Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we've got a very special episode planned, and this is a topic I've not heard enough people talk about, and it's the realities of running a business when you've had a baby. Now, I do hear female entrepreneurs talking about this, which is brilliant, but I sometimes feel that the dads or the blokes gets pushed to one side, and we don't get talked about, we don't get referred to. And although it's maybe nowhere near as hard for us, absolutely popular culture and all the ladies listening will be the first people to say that it's nowhere near as hard for you. You know, you go through far less challenges than what our female counterparts do. There definitely are some challenges adjusting to life as an entrepreneur in business when you've had a baby. So quite aptly named, Blokes, Business and Babies. I've got a good friend of mine and a guest who's going to be discussing with me the realities of having a child when you're a bloke, when you're in business, and the reality of managing this as a overall process, how you adjust and change your lifestyle to deal with this. I myself had a baby around 7.5 months ago now, and Mo, who's joining us today, had his baby, I think around 4 months ago or so now, but I'm sure he'll fill me in if I'm incorrect when he joins us in a second. On the one hand, having a baby as an entrepreneur should be much, much easier than the normal average Joe, because theoretically you've got all of this flexibility and all this spare time in your hands and flexibility in the working day. On the other hand, it's much, much harder as you have flexibility in the working day. And what I mean by that is if you are working a 9 to 5 job, you leave out the door at 9 a.m., you come back at 5 p.m. and you're all good. Like when you're home, you're home. When you're at work, you're at work. That's unfortunate in some ways because obviously you're missing your child for the day. But when you get back, you know you're on. When you're an entrepreneur, you're trapped in this little never zone whereby you're always at work and always with your child. And it's really, really challenging balancing it all and working that all together. So this podcast Unplugged, it's a very candid discussion around how we've actually dealt with this in practice from two people that have got big businesses or lots of small businesses, and we've actually had babies and we've dealt with this in practice. So hopefully it's a user guide for any of the new any dads out there that are about to have a baby that are entrepreneurs, or any dads in there that have already had a baby and how to deal with this in practice. So Mo.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. The first question I had, well, basically, do you want to just fact check for me what I mentioned around how long you've been a father for now?
Yeah, you went far off. It's five months yesterday. September, October, November, December, January. Yeah, 5 months yesterday. So yeah, very, very exciting and a bit of a whirlwind for 5 months. But yeah, really happy.
So I'm 2.5 months ahead. And it's going to be interesting to just compare notes so far to see how it's all progressed. I think one of the things for me is it is a progression, like from where you start to where you go on a weekly and monthly basis. It does totally change, and the kind of hacks and the ways of working do definitely shift.
Yeah, absolutely.
First question or first insight I'd love to give the audience is, how did it feel in the run up to D-Day? So obviously we're all given around 9 months of warning, or well, probably about 8 months or so, 8.5 months of warning that this impending new life force is going to join our lives. How does it feel? What's the emotions you go through or went through?
I think I was probably a bit, on the one hand, naive as to what the change would actually be like. I was obviously very, very excited, but very, very conscious of like, what if I'm not going to be able to be that available? What are the key points of failure in the business if I'm not going to be able to be around? So it's a bit like the sort of, I suppose it's like the dread when you just before you go on holiday and you think, if you've got your own business and you go on holiday, you sort of think, what's going to happen if I'm not contactable or whatever. So sort of similar to that, really, just trying to think about systems and processes and people, and weird things like, oh, well, I'm the only one that's got access to this file, or this thing's in my name, or like I need to get this person set up on the bank, or need to get this person a debit card, or whatever. Those kind of things, I think, were the main thing that sort of occupied me. At the same time, just seeing an insane increase in the amount of money that you're spending on like baby stuff, and New, like we got a new sofa, we got like all new baby gear. We did quite well on Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that. But yeah, you just got this sort of tidal wave of spend as well, which you can probably relate to yourself.
Yeah, and I think that those feelings kind of come and go, don't they? So in the early days, you feel like you've got loads of time. I remember when we were kind of 9 months at the start. I remember when we got the news we were on holiday in Turkey, and in my head, like, we had ages. That time diminishes quite quickly. And what I also found was you feel like you've got 8.5, 9 months till it's going to happen, and 8.5, 9 months to make the changes. I actually found the time was less than that, because when the third trimester hit, when Hayley got into the third trimester, she struggled a lot. So she got very big, like very, very big from like she will happily say that herself, like very swollen, like struggled sleeping. So I felt like there were already, I thought I had more time than I did, because actually she needed me a lot earlier than I anticipated or expected. So that was like a big thing for me. And I think
that makes sense.
There's a element of getting more sensitive to issues. So before, when something bad would happen, you'd go, oh, maybe a team member's going to leave. You'd be like, before you'd be, oh, that's annoying, I've got to recruit, or I've got to, find that new person, or, it's going to be a revenue gap or whatever. When you're leading up to D-Day, it's like, oh my God, like, I can't actually deal with this right now. I've got to find something in 2 weeks. Otherwise, if I don't do that, when my baby comes, I'm not going to be able to take the time off. And then, I'm going to have to be working, while I'm in the delivery suite. And your mind just starts to race with all of these kind of thoughts and these worries. And I think you just become a lot more sensitive to a lot of the issues. Did you find that the people around you, or what actually surprised me, was how supportive the people around me were? So, absolutely. I don't know, but I know you've got a team of employees. Like, what was their reaction, and what did they think about the?
It's quite funny. We had a bit of, I already used the word tidal wave, so maybe I won't use it again. But we had a bit of an influx and a flurry of babies in our office. So my business partner had a baby a couple of years ago. And sort of a year and a bit before when Lenny, my son, was born. But we had in the team, I think we had between the two businesses, Morby and KHP, we had like four or five babies, like all around the same time. So it was like, it was sort of like a thing that like everyone was having a baby. So everyone was super supportive and sort of being like, yeah, don't worry, it's going to be fine and we'll cope. And it is the same. It's always worse in your head than it is in reality. And I think it's definitely draws parallels with the holiday example of just wanting to make sure everything's fine when you're not going to be available. And also I think I learned from James when he had his baby that probably wanted to take off a little bit more time than I planned, and also be ready to go a bit sooner, even though the baby was probably going to be late. Like, just be ready to go a bit sooner. So just trying to, like you say, that time shortens. You don't always have the full 9 months. You need to start thinking about whether it's like nesting and getting the house ready, or whether it's supporting. And Lucy was doing a lot of like meal prep and things like that. And there's just all this extra stuff that is over and above your sort of day to day. But overall, on the team front, very, very supportive. It was really good. Everyone was very excited. And yeah, there was a real flurry of babies in our teams, which was bizarre. We had to sort of say, this person's off on maternity, or I'm going to be off on maternity, and this person's off as well. But just clarify, like, it's not the same baby. Like, we're having separate babies. Like, I'm not having a baby with the person in the team or whatever. So yeah, it was quite funny actually.
And what did you do in terms of time off? Because time off seems to be a bit of well, I think there's a bravado or egotistical thing saying, oh, I'll be off for 2 weeks and it'll be fine, don't worry about it. And then other people tell you, no, honestly, take a month off, like take a minimum of a month off. I think I was probably in that boat, telling you to take more time off than you did. What was your view on it? And looking back, what did you do? What was your perception of the amount to do? And then looking back now, would you have done anything differently?
I I don't think I would have done anything differently. I was basically in a position to, like, if anything drastic happened too early, I was basically in a position where pretty much everything was ready. If it had been a few weeks earlier than it was, I would have been fine. So I was able to, when Lucy's waters broke, and then we sort of had to go into hospital because the baby didn't come straight away. I basically just started the sort of leave from that point, which ended up being, I think, 3 days before he was born. So I was quite set up from that point of view, happy with that. I ended up saying I was going to take 2 weeks, but then because he didn't come straight away, it ended up being about 3 weeks. But when we were just sort of waiting in the first couple of days before he was born, I actually was doing a little bit of work. I was doing a few emails. There's a video, one of the videos I did on this channel, on the property vlog channel on YouTube, which I actually recorded in the hospital grounds. Like, you can see the background of the thing. I'd already recorded the footage from one of our development sites, but the actual intro and sort of the narrative bit I actually recorded in the hospital, because it was literally, I don't know if you had this, but literally just hours of waiting around, like hours and hours. It actually turned out to be days in the end, a couple of days. But yeah, so I think it was a really sweet spot, like sort of basically wanting to take 2 weeks initially, but then it ended up being about, I think, 3 after he was born, which was really nice. And it was 2 weeks of completely like shut off. I'm not even going to answer like anyone, and we didn't really see anyone. We just wanted to have it with us lot, 3 of us. And then a week of sort of like slowly easing back in and starting to like answer a few emails and think about the things that were important, but still technically be off, not do meetings. One of the really nice things is like have a week where you're working, but like don't have any meetings. It's just like insane. Like, you just realize how much time you spend in meetings when you have time like that. And that sort of third week was like that. It was just, yeah, it was pretty nice. I was completely off, but I was able to sort of do a few bits.
So 2 weeks plus a third week.
What did you do?
Getting back in. I did 2 weeks, but I had to go to do a property entrepreneur event in the second week.
I remember.
So it's basically a day's worth of, basically a night and a day's worth of work. That was because we were 2 weeks overdue, and so I felt like I couldn't really cancel turning up to an event. It was like too big. It's too much to change. It should have been fine. I should have had like ample time, but it was quite good because it just, I think, gave me a week and a half kind of really off. And then I kind of dipped my toe back in, like you suggested. And then I kind of came back off then and relaxed for a little bit longer.
But I remember you changed your plan, didn't you? Like, rather than where you would usually stay over the night in Birmingham, you just drove home. Is that right?
I just drove
home,
sort
of adjusted it a bit more to suit the family.
Yeah. I think for anybody that's thinking that, I don't need to take the time off, it'll be fine. I think you can definitely, if you want to, you can push through. Like, you don't necessarily need to take the time off, but you should want to. And I think it's if you're going to have an excuse to take some time off and do something, like take time off for a good reason, taking time off when you just had your baby is like the most incredible experience. And I think the more time you can take off, the better. I know we're not all in a privileged position where some people will listen to this thinking taking a week off or a day off will be like really tough. And I appreciate everyone's in a different boat, but it's really, I found those 2 weeks to be a real roller coaster. And on like day 2, if you'd said to me, Josh, could you go back to work tomorrow? I'd have probably said, yeah, I'm absolutely fine. Like, I don't know what everyone's talking about. But then you have a couple of bad nights of sleep, and we had like an issue with Iris actually losing a bit of weight, and so we had to go on a feeding plan, and that was all quite stressful. So day 5, if you'd asked me, I'd be like, absolutely not. I can't even believe I'm going to do this event next week. Like, I need weeks off. And then day 7, you're like, oh, actually everything's going fine again. I found it to be such a roller coaster within that time. So just taking that time off is, I think, just absolutely vital for your headspace, and just being in a flow and letting that be your primary focus. Yeah. And in addition, you said something there, Mo, which I think is really good. And I think once again, I gave you this advice too, because I didn't do this particularly well. Yeah. Would protect it. We had so many people coming to visit within those 2 weeks. And if you actually look at the guidance and advice, everyone always says for that first month, just don't even invite anybody around because it gets overwhelming. And I'm so grateful we had people around. But in hindsight, like, we should have we should have probably half the amount of people, because even just like when you're on a feeding plan, you've not slept, and you're quite stressed about something, and you don't really know how to change a nappy, or you're just trying to do all this stuff. Then somebody's got to visit you, even for an hour at 12 o'clock. It feels such like it feels like such a big ordeal. And it's I think in hindsight, I would have that 2 weeks, but make it quality time. I probably wouldn't have worked if I had the choice, or if I wasn't going to let people down. And I would have barely had anybody around during that time.
We actually ended it, which was I sort of wanted to do in the end, but I ended up just doing some dinners as well for people, because it was just sort of like easier. Like if they were going to come round, invariably it would be like they'd come round after work. It was going to be dinner time anyway, and just ended up doing dinners. It actually was really nice, but we did have it was fine to do it then, because we'd already had a couple of weeks of not seeing anyone really. One of the weirdest things I found was in that first period where it was I think we said we were going to do 2 weeks, no visitors, and we ended up doing like 10 days. And then we're like, okay, now it's like a nice time. It was like people like the postman and like the DPD delivery driver and like the next door neighbor would like see your baby before your like parents had and like your best mates had. And it was a bit of a weird feeling. I felt a bit guilty that like my mum hadn't seen Lenny, and yet like the sort of random delivery drivers had all seen them. So there was a bit of that. But yeah, I think key takeaway is I would definitely do that again. I'm not sure if, for me, I don't necessarily agree with like longer the better, because I think there's a point that you get to where like the first couple of weeks is so special and so nice. Then after that, I think there feels like there's a bit of a gap where if you're just breastfeeding or whatever, there's only so much that we can do as sort of fathers. So I feel like it's almost like diminishing returns on what you can do to start with. So I was quite eager after 3 weeks to get back, but then also have like a bit more, which we'll probably come on to talk about, a bit more structure around like my day. So I think that was like a real sweet spot, was like the three weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the next question. In terms of coming back, obviously you mentioned you did the week of no meetings.
Yeah.
What was the plan? Like, did you decide on a structure you were going to work towards, and then how did that actually unfold in reality?
Yeah. So I'd already sort of started to implement Zen before 10. So like no meetings before 10 o'clock. So that's a massive one. And really just to get the day started in the right way, make sure you're like on top of your priorities, what you're going to do, and on the front foot when especially if you're speaking to the team or you've got client meetings or whatever. So I'd already had that, but I wasn't really, what I was doing was like still booking in meetings, because I was like, oh, I've got a bit of time between 9 and 10. So like ad hoc before the baby, I'd be like, oh yeah, we'll just book that in for 9 o'clock. And, but since pretty much, I think fairly religiously since he's been born, I've stuck to that Zen till 10. So just not had any meetings, and I've pretty much, I didn't travel to the office. So I just worked from home because I live in London, but the business is down in the southwest. I basically didn't travel for probably the first couple of months. I didn't go down at all, because if you go down, it's like either a whole day or an overnight to go down there. And just really finishing pretty religiously at like between 5:30 and 6:30 in the evening. So that was sort of the pattern that I stuck to. In the early days, I've really fell out of like gym routine and like a nice routine in the morning. I actually ended up getting to a point where I was like, I've got to have a chat with Lucy, and we've got to work out a way that we can both like fit the things we need to do in, which includes like going to the gym, going for steps, whatever, as well as dinner together and stuff like that. And I really noticed that I just felt, I just didn't feel as good if I didn't have that routine in. So now we've got like a really nice structure where I'll go to the gym first thing. I'll then take Lenny at 7:30, have him till like 9, in which time I can play with him, and also I can have a shower because he sits in his like little chair while I'm showering. And then I give him back at 9. So I get to go to the gym. I get to see him, give him a feed if he's not already had it before then, and then be ready for 9, have an hour until 10, and then start meetings at 10, which is working really nicely.
So that's what about yourself? Now?
That's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
It's very similar. So the 10 o'clock thing was something that I'd started. I just decided, if I'm gonna do this. I want to protect my mornings.
Yeah.
So there were like a few reasons for that. One is, as you said, to make sure I can still get some exercise in, and still get like the things that ground me and keep me grounded during the day. But also, I got into a really good routine of trying to protect Haley's sleep. So she was we were breastfeeding. So it was when that's happening, it's kind of a good and a bad thing for you as a male. Like good in that it means you can sleep in the night because you're not really required. But bad, it means your partner's exhausted and you can feel quite useless. So what I would try and do is normally around Iris would normally wake. I can't remember now. It feels like such a long time ago. Iris would normally wake like 6 o'clock or something. So I would often, and she would normally do a feed. And after that, I would normally take her. I'd put her in this little pouch that we had, this thing like, it's like, it really wraps around nice and warm. Yeah. And I normally go for a walk along the canal. I normally walk to Costa, which is about, I don't know, 25 minute, 30 minute walk away, and then walk back. And by the time I got to Costa, she'd be fast asleep in that pouch.
Perfect.
But it worked well because it meant that I took Iris away for like an hour and a half, 90 minutes. I quite enjoyed it because it meant I got, did some walking and felt good. Went and got a coffee in the morning. There'd always be like loads of people around that would coo over and want to look in the pouch and be interested in what was going on. And I'd bump into the same lady each day who was always go to clean. She was a cleaner at one of the restaurants, and she'd always be interested and have a look.
Yeah.
So it's quite a nice morning for me, but it also meant that Haley could sleep. And I think that's a really important thing to factor in if you are, expecting or going to be on that journey, because you're taking in your head, it's like, well, if you just let the baby sleep in the room which you're in next to your partner, surely they're both sleeping. They're really not, because your partner will be awake, listening for every single movement, every single noise. So the only way to kind of give her that natural respite she actually needed, you actually need to literally take her to the living room downstairs or leave the house. And I found that was the only way she actually got a really good 90-minute kind of sleep cycle in that time. So I think
definitely.
I stuck to that for a long period, and that was probably the first 3 or 4 months. I then somehow things got a bit easier, and somehow I managed to get myself dragged back into working quite long days and quite got very, very busy again. And I think the Zentil term slipped, and it was more like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
and it got quite busy. But I've kind of done a full circle back on that again now, and now I'm back into that. Don't start meetings till 10 o'clock. I'm actually working Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays at the moment, and keeping Friday and Monday off, and having like a long 4-day weekend, being very productive in those days. Keep protecting my time till 10. Generally, the routine will be something like Iris will wake around 7:30. I've already woken around 6. I've gone downstairs 6. I'm actually like meditating for a good hour in the morning at the moment. So finish that meditation around 7. I normally write my book for a bit. So I'm in progress of that. Finish that by 7:30. I actually put the intercom on so I can hear when she wakes up. So when Iris wakes up, I can go upstairs, take her, change her nappy, let Haley give her a bit of time to get ready. I'll take Iris downstairs, give her some breakfast, give her a bottle, and then that's normally finished by about 9:30. I get ready, head to an office or head out. I think one of the things you mentioned there in the early days is you were working from home. I didn't ever actually do that because I found it was much easier to leave and then come back rather than be around all the time. And I found when I was around all the time, I found it really hard to actually work, and I found it really hard to give them my attention. So both things got stretched. And
I found the same. I would have, if I had like half an hour between meetings, like normally it would be like quite good. You might just get through a few emails or get some bits done, get on top of your list. But in the early days, I think because it was novelty and I was working at home, I would just literally just go and see them and be like, what you're up to and things like that. So so probably lost a lot of time in those 30 minutes. I definitely resonate 100%. With that.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for this, for me, and a top tip for anybody is like, you want your time. I think you said it earlier, like when you're working, be on and working. When you're off, be off and be really present with your baby. Like the way I've got this set up now is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are quite intense days for me. I'm still not starting till 10 o'clock, so actually you can say it's not intense at all. But then I finish when I finish, and I've got a to-do list to get through, and I've got to get it done. It's Thursday now at 10 to 3. I know when we finish recording this podcast, I've got a pretty big to-do list. I'm probably going to work until 6 o'clock or so tonight. I've got a run to do, some marathon training, so that's going to be intense. I know if I do that, I've got a Friday and Monday off, and I've spent some good quality time with them this morning, as well. So it's like when you're on, you're on.
Absolutely.
And when you're off, you're off. And like, don't get caught up in WhatsApps in the evenings and all the things you can get caught up into. Go for it. Go on.
I had I think I definitely resonate with that. I remember in the early days, I had like a couple of shockers where I was like, I thought it was like when you have like, you take them to be weighed and then you take them to see the health visitor and you go to see the breastfeeding consultant, and you know, there's all these like errands that you do, and you got to go and get their jabs, and there's all this stuff that you got to do. And I think I just underestimated, you know, the amount of time it took to like get them in the car and go there and wait and then come back and things like that. And there's a couple of times where I was like trying to do calls from the car and trying to rush back for meetings and tell people I was late. And it was just, I wasn't being a good parent and I wasn't being a good, you know, business owner. I was just sort of doing both badly. So I think that's really key. And generally people are like absolutely fine. If you're like, oh, I've got, you know, this, you know, meeting, I've got this appointment I need to go to, people will be fine with it. And I think I said before, like, people love babies, and if you need to move things around, or if you need to bring the baby in on a call because, you know, something's happened and you've got to take them for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, people understand it. And actually I think people quite like it as well. You always get a bit of cooing.
Yeah, people love it, and people love to talk about it too. Absolutely, it's never a topic that people aren't interested to have a chat about. So before we dive into a few more points, question for you, and I'm sure, I don't know if Lucy or Hayley will ever listen to this. Hopefully not, so you can answer honestly.
I'm pretty sure. I don't think Lucy's ever watched any of my videos, so I think we're clear.
I don't think Hayley's ever watched a single one of mine either, which is actually a real shame. Do you? How's having a child impacted your life? And to give you like a bit more clarity to that question, if there's somebody to listen to this that's kind of like me a few years ago, where they're like, oh, I do want a baby, but the idea of having it is like, you know, it's going to really impact my life in a negative way. You know, I value the fact that I have freedom on Saturday mornings. So I can go and get breakfast by myself, or I value the fact that I can start early, finish late. I value the fact that I can be 100% all the time on my companies. So I guess the question is, how has it impacted your life? Both positive, like, has it been overall a positive thing or a negative thing? And how do you think it's impacted you from a business perspective, both time and financially?
So I think overall net, like, massive positive. I've loved it so far. It's been great. It's been ups and downs. I think the only times that I felt frustrated really is probably when I was, like I said before, when I was not making time for myself. And I thought, I didn't resent him, but I was like resenting the fact that I hadn't been organized enough to like set up a structure that I was really happy with. So every morning when I'd have him and then I wasn't going to the gym and I wasn't doing it, and then I'd jump onto a call at like 9 or 10 and just be straight into it. And I hadn't really taken any time for myself. Like that was a lower moment of the journey, I'd say. And then the other thing is, the other side of that is before I sort of let go and just accepted that like it's like you got to work to his schedule. I think I thought I quite like things to be organized. And I was like, right, well, I'll do this. And I know I'm going to feed him there because Lucy was expressing milk that I could give him in the morning in a bottle, which was perfect. I was like, right, I'm going to feed him there, and then he's going to go to sleep because the last few days he's been feeding and then going to sleep, and then I'm going to go and have a shower, and then I'm going to do this. And I've got that bit of work that I need to do before that 10 o'clock call, so I'm going to do that there. And then it just all went out the window because he just didn't sleep and he was screaming and all of this stuff. And I think until I just got to the point where I just accepted that he's a baby and it's like his terms or no terms, there was a bit of like, I was frustrated that I wasn't in control of my schedule as well on that. So I think they're the only two sort of down negative elements of it, or not negative, but just things I had to come to terms with. Overall, I've loved it. It's been amazing. I think it's been fantastic. And in terms of the how it's made me think about things. We've got a couple of plans for things we want to do in the future. Like we want to buy a new place in London, and eventually we want to move out down to the southwest and have a farm and things like that. And I've been talking about these things for a few years now, and I think it's made me realize, especially how quickly the time goes, where I'm like, oh my God, 5 months has just flown by. Like it's going to be a year soon. We're talking about nursery already. Then it's like school after that. It's made me realize that I need to pull the trigger on a few more things that I'm doing, and maybe some of the stuff that I'm doing isn't leading me towards doing that. So I need to actually work on it's really fun having a plan and having a plan on a bit of paper, but now like it's rubber meets the road, and it's like I suppose it's made it more tangible around like literally this year he's going to nursery. So like literally this year it's another £1,000 on nursery plus all the other stuff. Like next year was the plan for when we were going to buy a new place in London. Like that's literally like less than a year away. So I think it brings all of those things into sharper focus because I don't know, I guess you're measuring the time a lot more regularly. Like normally it's just like months fly by and weeks fly by and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it was like 2019, like last week, even though it was 3 years ago. But when you've got a kid, it's like every week you're like, oh, they're another week older. Oh, they're another month older. And I think it just, did you find that it made it a bit more tangible the time?
Yeah. People say, how old are they now? And you're 8 months. And you're like, I can't believe it's been 8 months since you were that little and you were crying and and now look at you, you're a little maniac, you're like huge and you're like laughing all the time. There's some really good points to pick out in there, and I think I'd echo some of the sentiment. Number one, I really like the way you said you weren't annoyed at Lenny, you were annoyed at yourself for not being organized to allow it to give yourself that personal time. I think there's two elements to that. One is giving yourself a bit of credit in that it's very hard. Like people don't understand when I hadn't had a baby and people go about how difficult it is to have a baby, you don't sleep very well and it's much more difficult to manage. I genuinely thought it was just a load of bollocks. And I thought it was an excuse for people like to not do stuff. And I always thought it can't be that difficult. It can't be that hard. It's very hard. And so sometimes it is just okay to accept the fact that you didn't make it to the gym today because you, Lucy had a terrible night's sleep. So you had to take Lenny for 2 hours to let her sleep. And that was the priority for the day. And you could have gone at 8 o'clock in the evening, but that's the only time you and Lucy actually spent any time together.
Exactly.
So actually, what? I decided to not go. On the flip side of that, you are right. It's like being organized and being personally organized is the key to the whole thing. And it's not easy, but if you're way more organized, it happens. I've not really shared this, but Hayley and I had a bit of a disagreement. We have a lot of disagreements. I think that the amount of disagreements we've had has rocketed since we had a child. But that's a separate conversation. But we had a disagreement relatively recently. I've just started training for a marathon in April. And now what I try to do before I take on any kind of big commitments, and this is another thing for this podcast, and it's like a good bit of advice, is before I say, right, I'm going to scale my business this year, or I'm going to agree to climb up Mount Fuji, or I'm going to do whatever, do marathon and commit to marathon training, I have a conversation and we say, this is what I want to do. Like I really, it's not just me now doing this, because when I'm out running for 2 hours, you're going to have to look after Iris. So am I allowed to do this? Like, will this be okay? Will it make it work? And you have to start checking in with your partner on these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
She said to me, you can do it, but I need you to be way more organized. And I was like, and it really like instantly, I went ballistic in my head thinking, what is she talking about? I'm so organized. But I'm very organized in business, but I'm not very organized personally. And that's what I realized. I'm very organized with my companies, finances. Like what I do is organization of companies. But from a personal perspective, like her point was, so when you've got to run in the morning, get your clothes out the night before, because otherwise you'll be scrabbling around in the room trying to find everything. You'll be waking both me and Iris up, and it's really annoying. You've got to make sure you get up on time and do these runs. You've got to make sure you got your meals planned so that when you get back, you're not hangry. And then when I'm saying you need to feed Iris, I need some help, you're going, no, but I'm so hungry, I've got to. And these are all real life situations that happen. So I think being organized is massive. The second thing you said in there is just kind of surrendering to it. Like their routine changes constantly. And in fact, you never have a routine. So the reason why I think Zen till 10 works really well, or like having that time in the morning, is because it just gives you time, and that's what you need, and that gives you time to deal with all the different changes. And some mornings you'll be done with all you need to do by 8 o'clock. You'll be brilliant. Sometimes it will take you to the full 10 o'clock, so it gives you time. But each week your baby will change, and they will have different behaviors, better sleep regression. They go through all these paradoxes. The paradoxes make me laugh, but they're what's hard. It's like they're so tired they won't sleep. They're so hungry they won't sleep. Like this is the those are the hard things. And there's a brilliant I don't know if you've got this, Mo, but there's a brilliant app called Wonder Weeks. If anyone wants to download it,
showing the leaps and stuff.
It tells you why your baby's being a nightmare, and tells you how long it's going to last for. So it really helps a planning element. But you got to surrender to that and accept that your best laid foundational plan for what you're going to do will just change, and you've just got to be willing to kind of keep letting that change. Otherwise, you'll just be disappointed and upset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was one of the key things with, and I think that means you've then got to have more regular conversations with your partner and work things out and make sure it is it is a win-win. As far as it can be, and as far as the work can be split. But I think you're right as well about the organization. I mean, we're literally like planning out weeks in advance in terms of like what we're doing at weekends. We've booked our holidays for like the whole year, which we've never really done before. I've actually blocked the time out and things like that. So that kind of stuff is absolutely key as well. Personal organization is right up there.
Next question I'm going to ask you could be quite a emotive one. Once again, I don't know if Lucy can speak to this. How did you structure your deal? And what I mean by that is,
right.
I think as partners, and it's quite normal, we do a deal whereby we agree.
No money down.
Yeah, well, in some cases, my deal with Hayley, and it's changed over time, was that she does the night feeding because I work.
Yeah.
So I work, she doesn't work, and she does the night feeding.
Yeah.
There have been a few breaches, I feel, to that deal more recently, but we'll talk about that. But where did you guys get it? How did you reach that?
From probably the first, I can't remember how long it was, maybe 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, I can't remember exactly, but I was it even that long? Maybe not even that long. I was in the like the main bedroom with them. But since then, I've actually been in the spare room, and it's actually been quite good for both of us, weirdly. So Lucy's done all the night stuff. We split down, sort of like doing baby bath time and doing baby sensory. And this is the other thing that people don't tell you. You sort of like, you start doing baby sensory at like 6:30, and baby sensory, for anyone that doesn't know, is basically like get a load of old tut that either like looks like it's either colorful, shiny, or noisy, or can be safely put in a baby's mouth, and sort of just like try and stimulate all their senses for half an hour or whatever. So that starts like 6:30, and then it's like bath time and then bedtime, and we try and split as much as possible. And I have a 60% success rate of being able to get him down. But my point is that the time is just like, there's probably 6 till 8 to 8:30 is just like one of us is doing that. So it does really compress the amount of time you have together. So like I get up at 6, go to the gym, I'm back for 7:30. I take Lenny. I feed him if Lucy hasn't already fed him with express milk, and then I give him back at 9, and then like busy pretty much all day, and then it's the evening. So like really compresses how much time you actually spend together. So because it could only be then from like 8:30 till like 10 when I go to bed, and it's like we've got to have dinner in that time and like chat and catch up and plan things and stuff like that. So but the deal basically, I think I've had a fairly sweet deal. I've not really done I've not really got up in the night to do feeding and changes for a while now. So I've been very lucky in that sense that Lucy's let me
how do you
give me
feel
a pass on that.
How do you feel, and you don't need to answer this in full, just top level, in terms of your relationship with you and Lucy?
Yeah.
What do you think the impact's been?
I think positive. I think it's there's there's like, it is hard, and I think it's really hard for Lucy. I think one of the hardest things that she's found, which you won't mind me sort of sharing, is just like she's very house proud and very like proactive, and like likes to get the shopping done, and likes to have a clean house, and likes to have a tidy house, and likes to get through like admin like lists of jobs and things like that. And I think that is the hardest thing that she's been faced, because babies are quite needy. I don't know if mine is more needy than anyone else's, but generally, if I've got him, I can sort of do something else and he'll just be like watching me and be like, oh. But if she's got him, he'll want to cuddle, or he'll want to feed, or you know, those kind of things. So that's been the biggest struggle. So I'm trying to do as much as I can to support her on that. But ultimately, a net benefit. It's been, there's so many funny moments, and there's so many just hilarious things, even when things go wrong, and there's like, you know, poo explosions, and just, it's just so funny. Like the whole thing every week's different. So I think, yeah, net positive, although it is challenging, definitely, and it's made us communicate more, which I think is a good thing. What about you?
I would say our lives have been massively upgraded. I think we just feel so privileged. We've got this lovely little soul that's just in our lives all the time. Both call her our best friend, and it's just she's just an absolute joy. So our lives have been upgraded. I feel like relationship potentially has become a little bit more functional, and that we have less time to spend together, more time focused around making sure Iris is okay, and just less time with each other. And I'm looking forward to trying to get that time back. So I think as she's getting a bit older, and we start babysitters in, like my mum's desperate for us to go out for an evening so she can look after her for an evening by herself. Like all of this stuff's happening. It's a real
I think it's go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so I don't think I experienced this to a huge amount, but it's a real common kind of issue among men feeling unloved, or men feeling like there's less love in the relationship. And it's a very common therapeutic thing that men need to often work through, because before there was love and affection both ways, and to both ways, and now your partner starts to give more affection towards a baby, and you're like second. And it's a really interesting kind of concept. I don't think that's happened in our relationship, but I definitely feel like we just have less time for each other than we used to. So I'm really looking forward to going on that journey again, to kind of repairing that, if you like. And the only way to repair that is just spend more time together. I think,
and also I think not just more time, because I was gonna, but just then I was gonna mention about like watching Netflix and stuff. It's not just time, but quality of time as well. Like, you know, half an hour of quality time having dinner, not on your phone and not watching Netflix, is probably better than like 3 hours just watching something on telly. Although saying that, that's also important as well. If you've got, you know, a program that you love and stuff like that, and that's part of your, and you talk about it, and you're not just sort of on your phone and watch. I think the phone is the biggest thing. Like we didn't really do this before, but now we're like, we will both call each other out for phone use, either at dinner or well, definitely when we got the baby. Like if we're like on our phone and he's there, like it's just no. So we like call each other out on that. Watching telly, like not on your phone. So that's definitely been one change, and it's a hugely positive, and you don't realize how much you do it just by force of habit. Just like pick up your phone and you're like, oh God. Or you're watching something and you're like, what's that guy been in? And you Google it, and then you go on Instagram, and then you go on Twitter, and it's just like so it can be so dangerous. So that's been a positive as well. But just making sure there's quantity and quality of time, because like I said, it can only be, sometimes it can be 8:30 until 10 is pretty much the only time that I'll see Lucy in the day. So I think definitely resonate with that, especially like I'm sleeping in the other room at the moment, which I love actually, but that's even less time that I'm like sort of near her. So definitely making the most of the evenings.
I think similar kind of boat for us in terms of the deal that we struck. I think what I have learned though, I don't know, does Lenny sleep through the night, or is he still up a few times?
He does now, last probably 3 or 4 weeks we've been doing a bottle of formula in the night, at bedtime, and that sort of takes him from 8 o'clock, 8:30 until about 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately, Iris still doesn't sleep through the night. She's 7 months, and we think that's because she had to go on a feeding plan. So it's
okay.
She's not waking up because she's hungry. She's waking up out of habit. So we literally we've got a meeting on Monday actually with a sleep consultant who apparently everyone just raves about, and so we're trying to change that. But I think another thing for me and Hayley is Hayley's not slept properly for a year. So it's another thing that I want to get sorted for her. So in terms of our deal was very similar. That I work, she obviously looks after Iris, so she does night feeds. I think more recently, now Iris has gone into. I've always stayed in the same bedroom, which has meant I do wake up a couple of times, but I wear earplugs, and it's like, it's not too impactful. But now Iris has moved into a separate bedroom. I'm like, last night was my first night kind of taking responsibility for her.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really important, I think, to recognize that, because there's this relationship where it's right, okay, I work, she looks after Iris, works to a certain point, but if she's not had sleep for a year, it's probably that's just not sustainable. So there needs to be a bit give and take. So if I can lack a little bit of sleep and we can share the burden, it's going to work a bit better. What I found hard though is we've only been able to do that now. Iris has moved rooms, because previously there's no point, because Hayley would just be lying there awake, listening. We're going to test that and see how it goes. So we're reassessing the deal at the moment. But as I said, like, nothing ever sticks. It's not a chore to wake up and feed Iris. Like, it's an absolute pleasure. But it's that moment when you get woken up, when you feel it initially, and just pushing through that. It's absolutely fine.
I think the key, like I said before, I think the key is communication. And if you feel like you are not getting what you need out of it in terms of like time or like going to the gym or having time to prep for work or whatever, then in my case, I just had a really honest conversation with Lucy and just said, like, I really need to do this. What can I do? How can we change our routine, or what else can I do differently so that we can make this work? Because it's going to be a net positive overall.
We've started doing Monday night. I always play football, and now Tuesday night Hayley goes to choir. So
nice.
We both have one thing we have as well each, where the other person looks after the baby at home. Which once again, it's just another thing that just works really well. And I don't feel guilty about going to football anymore, because she goes to choir on the Tuesday. So we're both, it's like a nice even. Yeah,
Lucy's just started going to the gym in the evening now, which then makes me feel less guilty for getting to the gym in the morning. So there's a sort of, she doesn't go as much because she can't, but it's definitely good, overall positive.
But compromise and communication are just the key things with all of this.
Definitely.
So just to bring that round to like the actual business side of stuff, now you've gone back into business, you own development companies, letting agencies, you do a lot of stuff. Has your attitude or mindset changed or shift towards plans in what you're doing?
I think so. I think it's just focused me a bit more. And I think in terms of my day to day, it's made me think, how can I be more efficient and get the things I need to done, but also made me do a review of like, what am I currently doing versus what the plan is. And I think the sort of classic thing when you get into property and you're a bit of a creator in terms of your like wealth dynamic profile is just like starting loads of businesses. So we started like, service accommodation business and letting business and buying property and refurbishing property and doing a development company and then having a main contracting company. And we've got an office workspace that we rent out and all of these other things. And actually it's just trying to figure out how we sort of consolidate those down into like, well, what are the main things we do? The main things we do are we want to develop property, we want to manage property, and we want to own property. And, just try and get rid of some of the, I suppose you'd call it noise, because just haven't got time to do it now. I think that's the main thing. It's made me focus a bit more and realize, I'm not going to be able to, like, I've had times when I've been like, I used to go down to Plymouth sort of pre-COVID. I used to go down to Plymouth for like 2 or 3 days and stay overnight down there. And then I'd work late into the evenings and just like get Nando's in the office. And it's sort of like quite a depressing sort of existence to do that. And then go back to my like B&B. And I was like, pretty. It's just what you do when you're growing the business. But like now, it's like, well, no, now when I get the train, I go down and I come back on the same day because I don't want to like have a night. I want to be around for routines and things like that. So I would say in summary, maybe more focused, made my timelines short, made my goals bigger, but my timeline shorter probably. But at the same time, made me not want to compromise. Like one of the main things I want to focus on this year is removing sort of time ties. So having more reporting KPIs done via email, via WhatsApp, and regular structured short, like level 10 meetings, just so that if I like want to, go out and have brunch or go and do something, I can do that and still do the same amount of work, but be more flexible about when it happens. That's one of the main things I want to do.
So I think it adds another level to the opportunity cost of your time as well. So opportunity cost is the cost of the next best alternative. So like we're spending time recording a podcast now, what could we be doing? What could we be doing with this time instead? And we both decided that this is important enough to us to not pursue whatever we could be doing elsewhere. But I found having a baby means that you kind of, I'm very structured with my time anyway on that front and very, very considered with it. But on top of that, it's maybe start to say no to more and start to go, you know what, I'm just not doing that meeting. Like I don't need to be there. It's nothing to do with me. Like I'm just going to sit there for an hour and it's 2 minutes of my time. Like just someone else can do that or delegate or outsource or leverage or just say no. Like when a client approaches and they're going to be, I can just tell from the moment I speak to them, it's like, this is just going to be really hard work and hard graft. It's like, do you know what? I'm not going to do that. It just adds another value to your time.
Absolutely. And for me, I found, I sort of mentioned about travel, but also just with meetings, like I historically would really like face-to-face meetings. And actually it's sort of quite nice to like get out of the house and go into town and do an investor meeting and things like that. But I've definitely, I suppose like everyone has, but it's been exacerbated by having the baby, is just not wanting to leave as much. So if I can do it on a Zoom call, I just rather would, because the time either side of it, like you said, it's got a higher opportunity cost on that time now.
So for anybody who's listening that's had a baby or about to have a baby, they're a dad or they're going to become a dad, they're in business, what would your kind of top, if you're going to give them like a golden nugget, a takeaway, what would be your biggest thing that you wish you'd be able to tell yourself before you embarked on this journey?
I think just to know that you're not always going to be in control of your schedule. And I think that was the biggest thing. Like that was the biggest thing I think I had to let go of, was that like it's not going to be like planning a meeting and it starts at this time and it ends at this time. It's going to be like, it starts when it starts and it ends when it ends. And I think that was the biggest thing. If I'd gone in with my eyes open to that, maybe I would have, it would have been a bit of a smoother ride. Like I think it's been all right. I think I've been really lucky. I think Lenny's slept very well. Lucy's done an amazing job, and I have been very privileged. And also I think the fact that I've basically been working from home pretty much since 2016, since I started in property full time. So like that has been quite good as well, that I've had that balance of just sort of like working but being at home at the same time. But yeah, I think managing your expectations on the way in of like what you're actually going to be able to control, and feeding on from that, then just being organized with not just planning out your like 9 to 5 day or your 8 till 6 or 10 till 6 or whatever time you work, but like planning out your like 6 a.m. to the start, and then also your 6-7 p.m. to bedtime, like just literally plan it all out. What about you?
I like that. No, I think that's really, really good. I think just setting your expectations right, to almost have no expectations and accept the fact that things are going to go wrong, routine's going to change. I think my biggest sentiment and the biggest piece of advice I'd love to give, I wish I could have gone back and given to myself, and I think I embrace this relatively well anyway, so I don't think it's a mistake. It's just like, this is my biggest tip to anybody now that's thinking of having a family or is in a boat where they're about to have a baby or they've just had it. It would be to work to live, don't live to work. Like, just just the quicker you realize that your business is, your baby is not the inconvenience, your business is, and the business is the inconvenience. You need to get into a place where that business is just running in a way that's going to allow you to spend as much good quality time with your child, with your partner that you can, because that is what life is about. And when you're kind of leading with your ego, leading with your bravado, going, you know, everyone says I need a month off or 2 weeks off, I'll be fine in 3 days. Maybe you will. Good for you. But you shouldn't. It's not just about being fine. It's about doing what is important in life.
Yeah, and you're not going to get that time back. So, like, why only take 3 days at that point? Like, you maximize it. Yeah, I agree with that.
It's the most incredible, life-changing, like, wonderful experience. It makes life even richer. It doesn't diminish. Like, people get caught up in the fact you have to change nappies and deals with poos. Like, you don't even think about that. Every day when you wake up and you get a smile from your child, it literally gives you this warmth in your heart that you can't replicate anywhere else. So I think the biggest thing for me is, if you're considering having a baby, you want a family, you've got a partner, you're not sure when to do it, there's never a right time, but it will change your life in a positive way. And if you are in the boat, you're having it, like for me now, for you, my focus for you for the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months is get your business to a place where it props your life up to allow you to spend all the time you can, 3-day working week, no work at weekends, finish at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, be the person that can go to school, to sports day or whatever. I think I'm the only dad that's ever attended baby sensory on a Monday. Like, I've never,
nice.
I don't think I've
not been yet. I've not been yet. That's great.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's great fun. You get involved. But yeah, be that dad. And that would be my biggest sentiment to everybody.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think also, just very quickly, I think it doesn't stop you. It's not like if you're thinking, oh, should I have a baby? I've got a lot I want to achieve. Like, it doesn't stop you doing what you want to do. I think, on the contrary, it makes you more efficient in doing it, and probably makes you call yourself out on like the inefficiencies and like the just being busy. So like you said, you've got a higher opportunity cost of your time, which means you do less things that are like lower perceived value. So I would just say, like, I don't think from my like company performance point of view, I think actually all the companies are going to do better, like, as a result of having the baby. So I don't think it, needs to be it's huge and life changing, but it's not like a zero sum game that like you're either you're either a good parent or a good business person. You can do both.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm doing more. I'm doing a 3-day working week, and I think I'm doing more in these 3 days than I was in the 5 days previously. It's so much more done. Businesses are in the best place they've ever been, and it's, I think it just tune you in and gear you into it, and it just gives you, in some cases, it's going to give you that shock that you need. Mo, thank you very, very much for being on the podcast today. Thank you for the live stream as well. So we've gone out to all Mo's audience. It's brilliant. I've never done one of these before. It's been great. Valuable insight there. I hope everybody that's listened has gained some value there, whether you're thinking about having a family, you've already got one, or you've got a little one on the way. It's the most life-changing experience. Embrace it, have fun with it, and your business should do better than ever before when the little baby or the little boy or girl arrives. Did you finish up there?
Yep. Thanks, Josh.
You're trying to cancel it. No worries. Are we still live?